Hello, welcome to Morning Coffee with Brigid. I'm Brigid Burke, and it is now the 3rd of March, 3/3/2025. And I'm going to kind of wait a little bit just to see who pops onto the live stream this morning, see if there's any more bot activity that I have to deal with. Yesterday, they seemed to be quite heavy on it, maybe because it was a Sunday, I don't know. But we'll see who actually pops on this morning. Because before I launch into something or into readings or anything else, I am going to probably do a lot of readings today. But and Suda's on. Good morning. Good to see you. Yes, I'm just going to see who's popping in, so I can kind of give what messages I'm giving rather than repeat myself. Like give them to everybody. But yeah, it is just it's another cold morning, but I think it's supposed to start warming up now. We're going to be getting into that space where things are going to be. We're actually like we had these 2 cold days that are like winter's still here, but I think we're going to be moving. They were talking about possible snow next weekend, and Alex is on. Good morning, Alex. Good to see you too. Yeah, there seems to be this whole thing of that I don't know. I feel like from looking at everything, it looks like where we are shifting into spring weather. I don't know that they were talking about a possible snow signal, but I'm not really seeing that. So anyway, the only reason I'm kind of talking about this is just waiting for people to kind of come on and just kind of talking about what's going on right here. Because so I do have some things. Thank you for the Katonia goodies, Brigid. Got them this weekend. Oh, you're welcome. Good. I'm glad they finally arrived. Yes. And I apologize for those being so late, but it was just trying to find time. It was like every time I wanted to go to the post office, there was either like, oh, and Kathleen is on. Good morning. Good to see you too. Yes. Yeah, the Katonia stuff was like, it was like, okay, oh wait, I have to send this to Alex. And but because I always send that to people who join my Patreon if they're in the USA. I find that trying to do it internationally doesn't really work. It costs way too much money, and sometimes the people have to pay to receive it. So I just have stopped doing it internationally. But if you're in the USA, I do send it. And yeah, it was just. But I remember the one day it's like, oh, okay, no, there's a snowstorm today. Oh no, wait, I have to go here today. I have to go here. Like there were just different days that for some reason I didn't get to the post office or wasn't going to have time to do anything but throw something in and leave. So it took me a little while to get Alex her goodies, even though she had joined a little while ago. So anyway, yeah, I'm glad you got them. And yeah, and you are welcome. So, okay, so we've got a few people on, and we may have more people joining. So, oh my God, no worries. I didn't even expect them. No, it's okay. Yeah, it is part of what I have in the benefits for people. The benefits usually joining my Patreon is, like I said, I like to send a little swag. It's just a few little goodies. It's not like, t-shirts or anything that would bankrupt me if I had to do something like that. But usually even people who join, even at the dollar level, I'll send them a little something. But again, only USA. And then, of course, there's free classes for people at certain levels. And then, of course, the benefits of being on my Patreon are that, good morning. The benefits of being on my Patreon are that you get, early access to the podcasts. You get additional updates and things. Like if I'm writing something and I'm sharing it, then I will share it with the Patreon folks and not with, it's not something, it's what I share with the paid membership. So there's some exclusive stuff. There's exclusive podcasts at the $5 level and above. And then also at $5 level and above, there's different levels can get free classes with me. And actually, I'm glad I'm mentioning that because, okay, I'm going to be doing a lot more advertising of the ISFM this week. Sam is on. Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good to see you. I'm very happy that you're on today. Okay, so the ISFM, I did want to mention with that right now, there's not a whole lot of registration. And I'm going to basically, Kate and I had a conversation last night and through WhatsApp, but we had a conversation last night. And basically she's just said, well, let me know how many people are going to be registered by March 8th, because we're thinking if I don't have enough people that I consider it worth running it, like if the cost benefit analysis isn't going to work out, where it's actually going to be costing me more to do it for like maybe 1 or 2 people, then I may have to cancel it. So if you know anybody, maybe I know some people here have already taken the ISFM semester last semester. And I know Joanne is enrolled again, but if you know people who might be interested in this or have expressed an interest in doing this, I encourage them to sign up, even if people are just signing up for, they just say, oh, I just want to audit this lecture or that lecture. It's fine. I just, if I don't see that I have enough enough people, then I might make a decision next Saturday to say, all right, you know what? Anybody who's paid me anything, I'd refund, and then just be like, okay, we're just gonna not bother, because I have to pay faculty and stuff. And if I'm not having stuff coming in, I'm not sure that it's people aren't interested in the school. I just think it's that there's just not enough publicity getting out. And that could be partially my own fault, because I have been trying to put this out and let people know about it. But how wide of a reach it's actually getting, I don't know. So yeah, so I'm just putting that out there. I am going to try to do a push this week, because just to get people, get it in the sphere of consciousness, because it's kind of like with my classes too. Sometimes there's a lot of people who will be like the day before, like, oh yeah, I want to register for this. So it could be something like where people want to register at the last minute. But Kate says, she has a lot of prep to do, because she's the first one on the 15th. And like me, she teaches other classes and stuff. So if we're not going to do it, then she wants to kind of know by then. So yeah, so I'm going to try to do a big push this week for the ISFM. And so I'm just mentioning that to you folks, since I've mentioned it before. Okay, so all of that said, so what I wanted to talk about today, they're probably going to be doing a few more readings today, and Ellen is on. Oh, good morning. You finally gotten the, I was just thinking about you actually this morning, Ellen, especially since I was working with Stephen Bright's deck today, and I was just thinking about your friendship with him, and I was just like, oh, so yeah, it's, I'm so glad that you're on, because I know there was some issue with doing the commenting and stuff, or the chat. Okay, so okay, so what I want to start with is I'm going to probably do I have the potential to do like 3 or 4 readings today. We'll see how it goes, because I know how I am. I'll be like, well, I'll probably do mostly readings, and then I start running my mouth, and then then I'm like, oh, it's 8 o'clock. I only have time for 1 or 2 readings. So we'll see what happens. But the first thing I want to mention is last night. Okay, there's a lot of people. I've been getting a lot of questions from people, and Helen says, yay. I've been getting a lot of questions from people about the current astrological influences, and it's so yeah, the current astrological influences and so forth, and also about the how do I put it, current astrological influences and other things that are going on, other weird things that are going on, and even if it's not what we're talking about going on kind of more of a global scale, or what's even going on in the astrology, things that are going on with solar activity, geomagnetic activity, things that are going on in the oceans. We keep talking about this stuff. But also people just talking about stuff going on in day-to-day life. Like all of a sudden there's certain things that are coming up, or certain crises that are being provoked. And yeah, we are seeing something kind of on the grander scale, right? We are seeing things happening in the international sphere that are not very good right now. So, and as well as what may be going on locally in people's countries. Yeah, everything is kind of in an upset right now. So I have people asking me the question, what is, so the question then becomes, what is this? What is going on right now? What does this change mean? Especially since we're going to be in 2 retrogrades. Right now we are in Venus retrograde. And the other thing is that we are going into Mercury retrograde, and we are already in Mercury retrograde pre-shadow. Now, what's unique about the Venus-Mercury retrograde is that once Mercury goes retrograde, they are going retrograde together. And that is unusual. Okay, that is unusual. It's not that they might not have, like, within a couple of, a few weeks of each other, they might go retrograde. It's because literally in the sky, it's like they're going to be moving together. And that, in addition to everything else, 2 eclipses, 4 Kazimis, what else is going on this month? My God, we're going to have another planetary lineup at the end of the month. We have all of these kinds of oppositions. We've got the equinox coming, and we all know that we've been hearing stuff around the equinox, like, right? So we've had this long running theme of something is ending and something is beginning, which is a really overly simplistic way to put it. But that's the way that we've all been feeling lately, is like, okay, it's like there's this tension, like we're waiting for something to happen. And we're seeing things happen and we're getting nervous about what's happening. Okay. We're getting nervous about what's happening here. And so I feel like I need to talk about like what it was. Okay. So last night I had this dream. I actually connected with Azrael because there's some certain projects I'm working on. Neptune and Aries at the end of the month too. Just remember that. Oh yes. Right. Thanks, Alex. Yes. We've got that cluster of planets in Pisces right now. Mercury moved into Aries today. And Venus is in Aries, and eventually Saturn and Neptune are going to move into Aries as well. So yes, that's going to be big. And that is one of the things. There's going to be the water to fire shift, which we talked a little bit about yesterday. But the question is going to become, okay, what does this mean for us? What does this mean? Now I feel like I had a bunch of dreams last night, and I'm just letting people know who have participated in my dream workshops in the past, because I keep lists of who's participated. I'm going to be sending out an email to everybody. Now, we just had our dream workshop on the 1st. Okay. But I asked Azrael before I went to bed, and you can do this with your own guides if your own stuff. But I was a creative project I was working on. And also I was interested in how all of these influences, like what is this telling me about the path forward? Because I still feel like I'm on the edge of something and there's a lot of stuff that I can't see. So I said, and he keeps referring to things, and I'm like, all right, well, can you tell me about these things? Right. I want you to give me, in my dream space, tell me about these things. And wow, I had like, was it 4 dreams last night? Like 4 back to back. I spent a lot of time writing those out this morning, and they all kind of, I think the first part might be slightly different, but the rest of them kind of merge together. So what I'm going to end up doing is emailing the people who normally take the dream workshop, and I'm going to like write up the dream on one of my forms, and I'm going to say, okay, anybody who wants to, and it's completely optional, anybody who wants to can look at it and give me their impressions from what I'm saying about the dream. Anybody who does that, I will give them a free pass to whichever future dream workshop they want to go to. So, just because I feel like this is the kind of thing we do in that environment. So if anybody does, I'll be like, okay, if you want to join the next one for free, or the one after that, if it doesn't work for you, I will, that would be kind of the thing for doing it, for anybody who chooses to do it. But I'm just curious to get some other people's points of view on this dream, but I'm not going to discuss it here. All I'm going to say is it does seem to have something to do with this particular energy. So I pursued some questions this morning before I came on about, okay, what does this mean for everybody on this live stream? What does this mean for people collectively? And what comes up repeatedly, and those of you who are regulars here will know this, that the 6th house keeps coming up. Now, the 6th house, of course, is Virgo. And Virgo is, is where the South Node is right now. And the South Node card also keeps coming up. So what this says to me is that, yeah, there are a lot of places that we're being provoked in now. And what I think the 2 retrogrades are addressing, okay, because Mercury retrograde, don't forget, deals with, it either causes delays, upsets, or obstacles, can cause miscommunications because it has to do with communication. If you're planning a trip during Mercury retrograde, expect for things to be, delays or things to happen. It's also about technology. So you can have technology failures, you can have internet failures, you can have different things that go on. But Mercury retrogrades, we often think of them negatively in that sense. But really, it's more like, hang on, let's go back a little bit and not rush ahead and think about what's going on here. So when you're being told to think about 3rd house energies, which is Mercury, we want to think about how we communicate with others. 3rd house is the house of the neighborhood. How do we get on with our local community, with our neighbors, with the people around us? It has to do with sibling relationships, okay, which may or may not apply to people here. But it does have to do with technology, and it has to do with business and commerce and how we do all of that stuff. That's all Mercury connected stuff. And consider also that Venus, which rules, and actually Mercury also rules Virgo. Let's not forget that. So that may be the other aspect of it. So Virgo has to do with our health. So sometimes maybe this would be the time when, we're awakened to certain things going on in our physical health that we need to address. And I'm not saying that to alarm anybody. It's not like all of a sudden someone's going to have a big health crisis. But I feel like it's more, that's the house of worry. That's the house of perfectionism, the house of details. It can have to do with domestic animals. So sometimes if there's things going on with people's pets and stuff, and again, not to worry anybody about that. That doesn't mean, it could just mean something that needs to be looked at again or revisited again. And also that has to do with our service to others. How we, if you want to see the connection to community there, there's a service. Okay, so what else does Venus, so that's Mercury. What does Venus have to do with? Venus is second house, okay? So that has to do not only with our money, but also what we value. What we value seems to be huge right now. What is going on with what we value? And you'll notice that both of these, now Mercury is air, but Virgo is an earth sign, right? And Taurus is also an earth sign. Now, Venus is very, very earth oriented, but you're seeing this is happening in an earthy place. And as Alex just pointed out, when we start moving these planets into Aries, and eventually Uranus is going to move into Gemini, we're moving into fire and air and away from earth and water. Okay, in terms of what elements are kind of where the majority of planets are. They're going to be moving towards air and fire. And so, yeah, so it's almost like we're finishing up business in these houses connected to the earth. Now, of course, Venus also rules Libra. Okay, so Libra has to do with our personal relationships with people as well. Whether it be marriages, whether it be just serious relationships, business partnerships, whatever relationship has a more serious flavor to it, or maybe have it as an actual legal component to it. Those are the kinds of things these are all the areas that Venus and Mercury touch. So with a retrograde, this is where we're going back. Like I always say, Venus retrograde, like if you're thinking about going for a new look, Venus retrograde ain't the time to do it. Because that also has to do with aesthetics and the way that we do personal, the way that we value our appearance and the aesthetics and luxury and things like that. It's time that can be rather tenuous. And it also, retrogrades can also create illusory situations. Communications may not be clear. Our vision of things may not be clear, especially with these planets. Well, okay, the Piscean side of it, if they retrograde into Pisces kinds of can make it a little bit cloudy. But in Aries, there may be this, I don't know, this impatience or this frustration that may make us want to act prematurely on things. Okay, which is I think why a lot of the readings I'm doing for people, and I've been doing a lot of readings this past month, more than I've been doing in a while, all seem to tell people put the brakes on, wait and look at what's going on here before you move ahead. And that leads me back to the whole thing that's going on with the sixth house, because, again, I feel like a broken record talking about this, but I feel like we're all kind of in this space where we have to look at what is routine for us. What is routine? Where do we have perfectionist tendencies? What do we worry about? Because you have to think about the fact that worry is also often connected to control. And not control in the sense of, oh, I want to be a badass authoritarian. Like, I don't mean necessarily control in that sense. It's just that we want to have control over things. If you think about what often, like, okay, you want to think about this in an extreme. If you think about what classifies obsessive compulsive, right? What does an obsessive compulsive person do? If they walk by and like there's a picture on the wall and it's this way, it bothers them. It has to be the right way, right? There's just certain things where there's that's where you're talking about something that's like a neurotic condition. But you can have sometimes people who suffer from that. It's almost like there's an excessive need that things have to be in a certain order. I've known people who have suffered from this, and it's just kind of like, okay, everything has to be exactly this way. It has to look exactly like this and exactly like that. And even people who don't suffer from that, like I've worked with so many librarians over the years, right? And I don't know. My mother and I were both kind of like this. Like I said, you walk past the stacks, and if something was out of order, you had to, even if it had nothing to do with your job, you have to stop and fix it. Like it has to be in order. It has to be nice. It has to be neat. Or the way I think about sometimes the way I keep my house too. Like there's certain days of the week that I have to get things done, and I can't have people in the house until I've sorted all that out. Like this is where those Virgo-ish tendencies come in. Those kind of like, I need things to be neat and orderly. And again, in one sense, there's nothing wrong with that. To say, yes, I would like my environment to be neat, tidy, and in order, and so that I know, what I'm doing and my next steps. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it becomes something that becomes a block to moving forward, that's when it becomes a problem. And I think what we're all being asked to do is, it's like I would recommend that people look at, and anybody who took my South Node class has probably looked at this, but sorry, North and South Node class. I did a class on both of them, not just one of them, but where your South Node would have been pointed out in that class. And it's like that's where Virgo is right now. So where Virgo is in your chart is going to tell you something about perhaps where this is going to affect you. Okay, because obviously we're talking about Virgo as being 6th house, but in your chart, it's not necessarily going to be there. It's going to be wherever Virgo was, in where the constellation was at the time you were born, right? And, and right now, so if the South Node is there, and then we have the North Node. I'm trying to think where the North Node is right now. I was just looking at a chart of Britain, but I'm not sure where it is for the USA. It's going to depend on where you are. But we're really looking at this energy around the 9th, 10th house right now, which is going to put, which interestingly is going to put the South Node in the 3rd, 4th house. In our individual charts, like mine happens to be in the 2nd house, which is ruled by Venus. So it's going to be whatever the South Node is pointing to in your chart, or whatever, that's going to be, or wherever it's transiting through Virgo. You're going to want to look at your actual South Node, and you're going to want to look at where the South Node is transiting, because it feels like those are going to be places where you're going to find tension. And it's going to be different for everybody. For some people, this may affect your job or your career choices. For some people, it might affect your family relationships. For some people, it might affect your marriage or your partnership. For some people, it might have to do with, I don't know, it could have to do, if it's more like 10th house, it might have to do more with what's going on collectively, right? With the government and everything else. Because that's the area you want to look to for how what's going on, with regard to wherever you live, whatever country you're in, whatever's happening, like usually that's 10th house, because that has to do with whatever the authority is for the more public sphere rather than the private sphere. So that's what we want to look at. And let me just block this asshole. Okay, so and I don't need to. Sorry, I don't want me. Yeah, I don't want to show anybody's comments on here. So let's see. Okay, and now it wants me to reload the page. So anyway, sorry. So anyway, so let's just continue on here. So what's going on with this is we've got Venus in Aries. We've got Venus in Aries, and it's going retrograde into Pisces. We got Mercury in Aries, and that's going to go retrograde soon. And so we're looking at the 6th house kind of a thing that's going on. And, so the question is becoming, what do we have to look at? Now, looking at the 6th house area is actually really quite difficult, because the problem with looking at the 6th house is that is what is routine for us. That is what is familiar. That is what is comfortable. This, when we talk about service, some of this may have to do with what we feel we need to do for others that's important. Okay, because when you think about service, it can also have to do with the way we feel that, what is our contribution to community, right? How are we going to serve others, or how are we going to work with others? And so what does that mean? And so we have this so what do we have with this? And that is the area that if I was to say to you, if we were in talking or doing a reading or having a mentoring session or whatever, if I was going to say to you, okay, you need to think about what's routine for you, that's hard. That's hard. Thinking about what's routine for you, you might say, like, you might look at all your routines and go, oh, well, yeah, but of course I have to do it that way. You know what I mean? The idea that you would want to change anything about that, well, of course I can't change that, right? Well, no, of course Or maybe we don't want to change it. Maybe we're like, well, no, but I'm comfortable with this. This is what I want to do. And it doesn't mean that everything in your life has to be uprooted and changed. But there's something in our lives that's changing that can't be done the same way it was done before. And that's the thing that we need to identify. So what I wanted to do was pull some cards. And I'm right, here I am at 7:55. And this is going, I think I want to start with Cartouche today, actually. So let's see what's going on collectively here, or going on for people on the live stream. What's happening here? Okay. So yeah, so let's see. Okay. This is interesting. Okay. Our first card for today is Earth. Okay, so what was I just saying about Venus energy, about second house energy, or about Earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, this kind of energy, right? So this is the first thing. Yay, love Cartouche. Yeah, I know this has been my favorite deck for the last 30 some odd years. God, how many years has it been now? 38? Has it been that long? I don't know, it's been a long time anyway. I'm not quite that old, am I? I'm just not being able to do math this morning. Anyway, but yeah, so Earth. This is about, again, where our security is. And yeah, and what might be routine for us, what we value. And of course, we've got it with Scarab, which is what might be changing, okay? So Scarab always heralds new beginnings, changes, new things going on. So, okay, so here's the factor to be considered, Urias. Now, where Urias comes up, Urias has to do with that which we don't expect. When this card comes up, we, whatever we don't expect becomes, this is the thing that's coming on. The fact that there's change coming in, we don't know what that change is yet. We don't know what it means. And oftentimes Urias has to do with honesty, care, and caution. So we want to see things for what they are. And we also want to act in a way that is, that there's an element of caution to Urias. And it goes back to what Azrael says yesterday about don't always believe what you see. And that's really the essence of Urias. It's kind of like things are not what they appear to be. And even without his message, which I don't think is just a personal message for me, even though I'm sure part of it was just for me, Urias indicates that you need to recognize that we don't have all the information, that there's something that has not come out yet. There's something we haven't seen. And this has been kind of a repeating thing. Something looks one way and it may actually be another way, or it may be something that starts out not good and leads to some place that's good. Generally with Urias, I can say that's often the way it happens. Where something will be going on and there'll be kind of a crisis. I've seen Urias come up. I'm trying to give some examples. Like when I was in a financial crisis at one point and thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Do I have to do this and that? Is that going to work out? And Urias kept coming up, and it was like, things are not what they look like right now. Like you're not in the crisis that you think you are. And then the next day, all of a sudden out of nowhere, like all this money came in from somewhere. I was like, oh, okay. So, you know what I mean? It's like what we're not seeing. And I have a friend who this frequently comes up in their readings when I do readings for them. Oftentimes when they're in the business they're in, trying to communicate with people, and they're like, oh my God, I'm not hearing back from this person. I need these things. This is not happening. I don't know if this is actually going to work out. And Urias literally says things are not, or something happens that we're not expecting. So if we say are waiting for a message from somebody and they say, oh, well, they're going to get back to you in 2 or 3 days. And then they don't. And then you stand there and you go, oh, well, what happened? I mean, did they forget about me? Did they ghost me? Did they, does that mean, does that mean I'm being, rejected for the thing that I'm doing? Like, what does that mean? And oftentimes Urias just says something may have come up that you did not expect, or that they did not expect. And this is creating a delay that maybe you didn't see. In any case, that's just to give you some examples of what Urias means. But Urias means basically that you are, it's what you call it. You have, we're not seeing the whole picture right now. And the retrogrades also create that kind of condition as well. So when the retrogrades create that kind of condition, we basically, it's like, yeah, there's this idea that stop, take a step back, you've missed something. I think that's where I'm going with that. Stop, take a step back, you've missed something, or there's something you haven't seen. This is why with retrogrades too, sometimes people from the past come back or past situations repeat, because it's like, okay, here it is again. Now let's look at it differently. You know, now let's not do the same thing we did before, but what's the new thing you have to do? And frequently that's the question we have is like, okay, if I'm not going to do it the way I did it before, how am I supposed to do it? Like, what do I do now? What's different? And there's no collective answer to that. We do have Horus as the advice. Okay. So Horus has to do with, okay. So first of all, Horus has to do with healing. And the first word that's coming into my head is Chiron. So first place we may want to look is where we're wounded. Okay. And again, even if you don't know your birth time, even if you go and run, I mean, most people on here have had charts done by me, but if you haven't and you don't know your birth time, then you could just run it for midnight or whatever on the day you were born and the place you were born. And you'll still get, even if it's not in the right house, you will get an accurate place of where Chiron is, like what sign Chiron is in, because Chiron stays in signs for a long time. So the birth time's not really going to affect that. It's just going to affect what house it's in. But look at where your wound is. Look at where your wound is. And now Horus also has something ancestral. Because remember we were talking the other day about the way the 4th and the 5th houses were going to be affected by things. Horus also may have to do with ancestral. So what is traditional? What are the patterns we're following? What are the things that we have repeated that consciously or unconsciously may be what we were taught by our parents and maybe by their parents and so on and so forth? What's coming in that this is just the way we've always done, and we accept that this is the way it's done in our family, in our social group, you know, in this kind of a thing. So yeah, what do we need to question about that? So there's a family component to it, and there's a healing component to it. And again, Chiron's the first word that popped into my head with this. So I'm thinking, yeah, where is your Chiron? Chiron is in Aries right now, okay, in terms of just where it is now in transit. So that could also be where some, you know, it could be highlighting a particular area of the house too. But like I said, whenever I read charts, I always look at Saturn, I always look at Pluto, I always look at Chiron. Because again, we can look at the places in our chart that are auspicious, that bring us good things, which is important to look at. But I think a lot of times when people come and they want a chart read, it's because there's some kind of crisis or some kind of pattern they can't break or something. So it's like, okay, it's those places where our challenges are in the chart that are telling us where, you know, where we might need to break or to change something. So definitely, if you've done a life path reading with me, definitely go back and look and see what's in that report. And, you know, and like I said, people can do current transits with me, or you can run your own. Like I said, you can go to like astro-seek.com and just put in your information and just click on transit chart and see where the planets are now. And there should be a little report of what's in there by transit underneath. So, you know, you would have at least some basis to think about things if you didn't want to do it through me or through another astrologer. So, yeah, so there's something here about healing. There's something here about addressing our wounds. And this would also be our karmic wounds, our karmic past, the things that have been holding us back. And oftentimes it's not so much that there's things in the external world that are blocking us. They tend to be a reflection of where we believe we can't move forward, where we believe we're limited, where as part of our identity, we're saying, oh, I can't do this, or I can't do that, you know, or whatever. Because yeah, ultimately we have the water card. So the water, I always feel like when water shows up, it's saying, go with the flow right now. Go with the flow right now and focus on where you need your own healing. Okay. And if you're saying, well, I don't know where I need my own healing, then that's the area where you want to focus on. And again, it may not just involve you. Now I'm feeling okay. Yeah, it may not just involve you personally. This could be something that's happening in a relationship situation or in a work situation. But whatever it is, ultimately you need to refocus on what you need for healing, okay, regardless of what the situation is. Now, I wanted to use the between, is that what they call these? Between worlds? Yeah, I'm wondering if sometimes I think I'm making these names up, but no, it's between world cards. I just think of them as the bird cards. And let's see what comes up for us today in those. I feel like we need something from this today. And not, my only problem with this deck is it does flip. Yay, my crown clock has been buzzing a lot. Yeah. And well, yeah, right. You're having that connection to spirit, and that means different things for us. Okay, so we have the warrior card showing up here. And which one is the warrior? I think it's might be Sagittarius. Yes, I was right. So we have the warrior card. Okay, so what does this say? A youthful energy, the warrior is filled with an excitement to take on the world. They are strong-willed and ready to fight hard for what they believe in. The warrior is social and generally well respected. They can be overzealous at times and not yet attuned to boundaries. There is a lot of life to learn still, but fortunately the warrior has no shortage of will and energy to do so. There is a sense of great destiny to be fulfilled. Okay, so I think this goes back a little bit to what I've been saying to people too about identifying where your passion is. And I've been seeing that a lot too. I've been seeing a lot about where is your joy? Excuse me. Where is your joy? What is the thing that you really want to do? Because a lot of us despair because we think, well, there's a thing I really want to do, and then there's the thing I have to do. And this is saying, you know, it keeps refocusing us. It keeps saying, because one of the things I saw this morning is that part of the surprise that we're going to get, and that we don't see how this is going to pan out yet, is that our obstacles are going to be lifted. Because it was like a Jupiter return energy. It was like obstacles are going to be lifted. Now, this could have to do with Jupiter moving into Cancer. So we'll see, you know, what's happening with that. But it does feel like obstacles are going to be lifted. Maybe not this week or this month, I feel like is going to be where we're tested. And what we really need to do with all these retrogrades is reevaluate. So let's just see what else we come up with here. For now. Okay. Oh, wow. Interesting so far. I'm just pulling these. Got one more. And, oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So this is an interesting one for the astrology cards. All right. We're starting with our Yod aspect. Okay. Yod aspect has to do with destiny. Okay. Has to do with now, not everybody has a Yod aspect in their chart, but nonetheless, whatever it is that we are moving towards, I feel like there's what we think of. I don't believe really in the idea of purpose as a general thing. I think life is just something to be lived. But nonetheless, we often have a strong pull towards what it is we feel we need to be doing, whether it's service to others or what we need to be doing for ourselves or how we balance those two things, right? So the Yod aspect to me has to do with how do we move forward, right? How do we, you know, what is it that we feel we're being drawn towards? Now, Yod, some people do. I think there's a lot of people on this live stream actually who I've worked with who do have a Yod aspect. I know I have one too. But this is like whatever you're being pointed to, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a Yod in your chart. It could be, which is what they call the finger of God. It's like a planetary configuration that points at something, and when it points at something, that's the thing you're supposed to be doing, right? So we've got this element of destiny here, Yod aspect, and it's so there's a sense of, so to me, I feel like that's more in a sense, this uncomfortable sense that we're meant to do something different or something's going to change. And this is in the 11th house. Okay. Now it's interesting because a lot of the planetary activity we're seeing right now, like around like I don't know, like what's going on in US and Ukraine, that particular fiasco of a discussion. And the way things are on the international stage, a lot of that's taking place in the 11th house right now, just so you know. But I don't think that's necessarily what this is about. This is about, 11th house is about society. It's about what the people around us. It's about not only our friends and our support, but just the social network we're in general, the society we're in general. This also, though, has to do with our goals and what we're trying to achieve in this broader stance and this wider world. So yeah, so 11th house, this is the, it's kind of like, this is almost like a destiny in terms of what's going to happen in the social sphere and what's going to happen with our connections with people. Like that seems to be the focus here. The inner feeling of which we're unaware. This has come up a few times. Mars seems to be the big player here. Now, Mars is currently in Cancer, which is also, you've got Venus in Aries and you got Mars in Cancer. I mean, you've got kind of these water and earth energies with fire in them. And that it doesn't have to be a negative thing, but that can be a little crazy. So yeah, so I don't know. There's there's just this kind of stuff that's kind of going on here, but Mars here seems to indicate that this is kind of the hidden thing that's driving things. Whatever's happening there in that space, and again, it's worth looking at where your Mars is, and it's worth looking at where your where Mars is right now in your chart, wherever Cancer is in your chart. Mars is kind of saying, okay, there is some kind of provoking force here. There's something, and Mars also usually comes up in this deck when something is about to happen that we're not expecting. Again, there's this sense of, that's like that Urias card. We're expecting the unexpected here. Like, what's happening? We know something's changing. We can feel it, but and this often indicates that because Mars positively has to do with the action we want to take, but negatively it can have to do with aggressive energy, or it can have to do with impatience, frustration. All that stuff can be connected to Mars, because Mars just kind of wants to get out there and be direct and do it, right? And so this is that kind of energy. So what are we doing here? We've got so here is our what you call it? How do I want to put it? This is our advice card. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to find the words this morning. We have the 8th house card. Okay. Endings and beginnings. So this is a transformation. This is an ending. And again, we've got this Grand Cross, the provoker. We do actually, I don't think we have a Grand Cross configuration. I think we have a kite configuration right now. But there's the sense of being provoked. I mean, we've got this reading is sandwiched between the Yod aspect and the Grand Cross. And we've got Mars in the middle. And a lot of this this all seems to be centering around what's going on in society. Good reminder to stay cool and unprovoked. Yeah, well, exactly, because it goes back to you're not seeing the big picture yet. There is something that's about to end. And kind of the message I got this morning, like I was seeing all these cards of change, but they were kind of ended with the 2 of Swords. Like, okay, it's not going anywhere yet. And that's what's frustrating the crap out of us. That's probably the hidden thing. We're all trying to just kind of go along, but inside we're like, just got to get past this. Now, 3 other cards fell out with this. One was the 10th house card, like I said, about what's going on in the world, in the bigger picture, and maybe how we play into that. Venus is also coming in to play. Okay, and we know Venus is retrograde right now. And Taurus is coming into play. So again, Venus, Taurus, they're related to each other. There's a retrograde going on. Yeah, all of these energies are coming into play because they're trying to make us see what we need to change. What part of our routine do we need to break out of? And again, I encourage people to look at their charts to see what area that seems to be likely. Or you may not even need to do that. You may know. You may be like, yeah, this is going on. And so clearly I'm being provoked to do something here. Could be, again, could be financial, could be career, could be relationship, could be a lot of things. And with Taurus here, though, I feel like one of the fundamental things is, what do we value? I found myself thinking, by the way, just kind of with regard to this, especially with Mercury going retrograde, thinking about all the discussions we've had about AI and so forth. And I often thought, maybe one thing, because a lot of people are saying like, well, I don't want to be on Meta anymore. I don't want to do things because they take all my stuff and then they feed it to AI. I'm like, well, if they're going to feed AI, like maybe then we should just post stuff in those places that we would actually want AI to have, like post different things. Posting, what you call it, that AI would, like say things about it, like, if you have a lot of money, it's good not to, to hoard it all for yourself, but it's good to have it, but it's also good to share it. Like, just different things, like continually feed these kinds of things into AI as part of what we put in our social media content, maybe rather than stuff that's personal or artistic to stuff which we might put in other places. But just keep feeding the AI stuff that's kind of, to try to provoke us into a more humanitarian worldview, right? If you're not going to get rid of AI, then try to steer it in the direction that you want. I mean, if a lot of people did that, I think that could have an effect. So anyway, that's a thought that occurred to me this morning. But just also thinking about the whole 11th house thing, what we're doing socially. Anyway, that's it for me today. I hope this was useful and helpful. And I'm hoping I did not accidentally, I know I blocked some people who were just, again, they're usually bots that are coming on and just trying to provoke things in a conversation. Speaking of provoking, love thy neighbor. Yeah. I guess that's part of it, certainly. And I'm just, so again, I'm hoping that there's people who didn't get accidentally blocked on comments, because trying to do this through this stream and on my phone is annoying, but I also don't like to keep the computer open too, to try to moderate at the same time. So I will have to check to make sure I didn't inadvertently block somebody I didn't want to block. And if I did, apologies, it was not intentional. But some people, yeah, they were just coming on to, provoke. Thanks, my friends. Oh, you're welcome. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys so much for joining me. And I will see you guys. Yeah, tomorrow's Tuesday. Yeah, I'll be on tomorrow morning. So take care. Have a good